Hi, Steve here. Let's just pop the bonnet on this backhorse bot and see exactly the layout of it and what can be achieved from it. So first of all, this is the settings page. As we can see up there, settings. This is the page that you come to once you've logged in, and it is essentially that you set up to get the bot to run to the instructions that you set on this setting page. So first off, let's have a look, and the first button we see there is auto reload. Now, if you're not going to if you're going to run all the courses and that, just leave reload, auto reload ticked. What that does is every hour or so it reloads the fields and adds new races into it, and also if there's time changes or that, they'll all be updated if the auto reload's ticked. However, for example, if I just click on venue, this shows all the venues that tab 1, because tab 1, if we look over here, it's ticked for Australia, Great Britain and Ireland, so it brings up all the races that will be covered today. Now, for example, say you didn't want to bet Chelmsford City here, you would untick that. If you untick that, then don't have auto reload ticked, because when it reloads again, it will reload Chelmsford. So if you are going to deselect either races that you don't want or venues you don't want, then have auto reload unticked. But if you're just betting like we do, bet every track, every venue, every race that meets the criteria, then have auto reload ticked. So while we're here, back 1 relates to back 1 settings here, then back 2 would relate to the settings there. So for example, if in back 2 we were only going to back GBR, for example, and we reload back 2, you'll see now it only brings up the Great Britain tracks. Okay, then that's the venue. So as I said, if you wanted to deselect a venue, you do that there. So that is auto reload. Now, show the market, for example, show the market is not needed. This grey area is not needed to display anything in order for the bot to keep working. It reads everything in the background. This is only for your own benefit. And we suggest you don't have show the market, because if you look up here, the API is 31.5, 32. So it's dragging a lot of data requests back from Betfair, and we don't need to see all that. So if we untick that, for example, now you can see it's dropped back to under 1. So don't show the market unless you specifically want to have a look at a market. Okay, the manual, if you click on that, it'll bring up the manual that tells you about the bot, and it tells you the stake, the strategy that we're using. Betfair Help, that goes to Betfair, and you can learn a bit more about Betfair on there. Okay, now the commission. What I must say is all these settings, this auto reload, show the market, and the commission, they are set for all 3 of the back 1, back 2, back 3. When you set these here, you can't set them individually for back 1, back 2 or back 3, okay? So if you are going to be betting in Australia, but you're also going to be betting UK on another tab, or the same tab, you must make the commission 8, because the highest commission in Australia horse racing is 8. So if you set that at 8, the bot allows for that extra commission, and all it does is add a bit of extra profit to you. So if you're going to be betting Australia, have 8 in there. If you're not going to be betting Australia, then you can just put 5. Okay, as this is a brand new bot, just been opened, it's not showing anything here. This is the profit for back 1, profit for back 2, profit for back 3. Well, we haven't got any of them running at the moment. Now the next thing you need to do before you go on to back 1 and back 2 and back 3 is up the top here, you can see here, this is 1 through to 18, there's actually 20 if we scroll across. These are our staking cycles or tabs, okay, and that is where the bets are placed and the recovery staking and all that is done. If you're going to be using a strategy of the first favourite, then we only have the first 3 tabs enabled. By default, up to tab 10 is enabled, so there's 10 tabs enabled by default, and if you want more, then you have to tick them and enable them. So if you are going to do our strategy of the first favourite, then we suggest you only run the first 3 tabs. So you would go through and enable tab 4 to tab 10. Okay, so you just go through, untick, enable, because we don't want to spread our losses over this many. We're expecting to get recoveries a lot quicker than this. Okay, so then now only the first 3 tabs are going to be playing when we set this up. So if we go back to our settings, what this allows us now, we've set those up, we can come through here now and do our individual settings. Okay, so if we go to tab 1, we may only want this on Australia, for example. This is not our strategy that we're using, this is just giving you an idea on how to set it up. So we want to bet, say, the second favourite, and we want the second favourite to be anywhere between 3.25, for example, and 6. Okay. Then we get another one, the minimum price of the first favourite. Now this is an extra filter. You don't have to put it in if you don't want to, but what you can do is here is you can make sure, for example, you don't want to be betting the second favourite if the favourite is reasonably short in the market and a pretty big certainty of winning. So you might put minimum price of the favourite to be 3 to 5. So you want the market to have, that would say we're looking at 2 horses that are pretty close in the market and we'll be taking the second favourite. Okay, time to bet, well, pre-play, always bet pre-play before the off, and now we're betting 5 seconds before the off. Minimum amount matched. Now we've found there's no difference between a race that's maybe only have 2,000 or 3,000 invested in it and a race that has 100,000 in it. The results are not that different on the first favourite. So depending on what you want to do, 2,000 is enough liquidity, especially on the first few horses. If you were going to be betting the 5th or 6th favourite, then I suggest your minimum amount better be up to about 10,000, because the lower you go down the rankings, the less liquidity there is on that horse, and specifically that horse. Okay, so you might find the back price is at 5 and the lay price, sorry, if you're doing the 5th favourite, the back price might be at 8 and the lay price might be at 10. There's not a lot of liquidity in that. When you get down that far, most of the money is held in the 1st, 2nd and 3rd favourite. So if you're dealing with the 1st, 2nd and 3rd favourite, a minimum of say 2,000 on Australian racing and 50,000 or 100,000 on the UK, doesn't matter. But in Australia specifically, just keep that in mind. And we want to look at maybe between, say, 7 runners and 14 runners, because we're trying to find the winner here. We're backing for the win. The next section in this blue box here is our control on how much we want to win. So you can see there I've got 0.1. I'm only trying to win 10 cents or 10p a winning bet if I've got it like that. And I've got that ticked, so it means when I hit my profit, the staking restarts again. Okay, the next one is how much stop at a profit each tab. Now, if you have this ticked like I have here, these figures in here don't really matter, because it just means the bot is just going to continue betting until you stop it. But if, for example, you only wanted to win £5 or $5 each tab, and keep in mind we're only running 3 tabs this time, well then you'd have that unticked. So when the profit for that tab got to 5, tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, whatever tab it is, it would stop betting. Okay, so that's what that does. And here if we put 5 stop all tabs and tick that, it means if all the tabs combined added up to £5 or $5 profit, then it would stop betting if we untick these. But we suggest that you just keep them all ticked, because stopping at a winner doesn't make much sense profit-wise. Okay. The next thing here is stop at a loss, staking each tab. Now, how much are we going to stake? How much are we prepared to back the horses before we say no, we're pulling out? So in this case here, I've got 10, so it's going to keep betting up to a maximum of a £10 or $10 stake. Once it goes over that, then it will restart. It will restart the betting again back at the 10p or 10 cents. And that's why I've got continue and restart. So if that gets breached, it will just turn around and start again. If you didn't want to do that, you would click don't continue. So if each tab got up to £10 or $10 and you had don't continue, the bot would stop until such time as you went and reset it again. Distribute all losses among enabled tabs. Have that checked. So that means if bet one loses, say, £1, then because we've got 3 tabs enabled, 33p of that losing bet will go to tab 1, 33 to tab 2, and 33 to tab 3. So it's splitting the loss over the 3 tabs that are enabled. Okay. So we move down. Then we get the option. Do we want to? We can either bet non-handicap races or handicap races, or if we've got them both ticked in this case, then it's going to be betting them. It's going to be betting both. Now that is only for the win market. In the place market, Betfair don't differentiate between a non-handicap and a handicap race. So if you're going to use place market, then that is not going to work. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The non-handicap and handicap won't work in the place market. Allow harness racing. If you want to bet on the harness racing in New Zealand and Australia, then you can bet that if you want to. Keep in mind, liquidity on most harness racing is very poor. Next one down here is Mexican Wave. It's important to tick Mexican Wave because what that does, it cycles the bets through the 1, 2 and 3 tabs. So tab 1 will get bet first, then the next bet will be on tab 2, and then the next one on tab 3, and then it will start again on tab 1. This distributes the losses and obviously distributes the bets going through. If you untick Mexican Wave, what it would mean is that tab 1 would have the bet. Now if that bet was resulted before the next race came about, then the bet would be placed on tab 1 again, and it would only move to tab 2 if the tab 1 results hadn't been finalised. So you could just get a run up of bets on tab 1. Now why we suggest this is if you have a 10 or 12 losing favourites in a row, you don't want them all piled on to one tab and have a losing run of 10 or 12. Where we've got the 3 thing here, if we had 12 losers in a row, then it would be 4 for tab 1, 4 for tab 2 and 4 for tab 3. So the runs that go against you are spread evenly rather than being all lumped together. The next important thing to have a look at is the profit delta. Now the profit delta is where you want a little bit of extra profit after a losing bet. If you don't have that profit delta amount in that, it means, for example, if I'm looking at 10p a race profit and I go for 10 races before I hit my profit, I will get all my losses back and I'll make the 10p profit. But if I've got a profit delta, for example, of 0.05, so another 5p for every losing one, after 10 losing bets, and I had a winning bet, I would get my 10p original profit from up here at stop at a profit. But I'd also get another 50p on top of that because my profit delta has been adding 5p target each time I've had a losing bet. So that's where the profit delta, when you have a look at the results for the profit delta and non-profit delta, why the profit delta results sort of turbocharged, because you're adding to each losing bet, you're adding another extra bit of profit that you want to make. So for example, I would put 0.05 in there or 0.02. The profit delta should only be 50% or less of what your profit target is. Just a rule of thumb. Okay, once you've set it up there, all that needs to be done now is you click on the start button and this will start betting. I won't click on it, but it will go green once you click on it, and that will start sitting there monitoring the bets and then placing them as the horses that meet the criteria that you've just set there. As they come qualified, then the bot will place the bet and it will work out the stake accordingly. Okay, and that's one tab. So you can set up one strategy there. You may only want it for Australia. Then you go into tab 2 and you might say, well, I'm going to bet Great Britain. I'm going to bet the win market, but I want to bet the favourite, for example. And then you go through and set the settings again for the favourite. And then tab 3, you might want to bet South Africa only, for example, or USA only. Then you can do that. Just keep in mind, South Africa, not too bad for some of the liquidity. Some races have a lot, but the USA has limited liquidity if you're going to go there. Okay, the other thing too is obviously the bot needs to be connected to the net, and so it needs to be left open. I run mine on a VPS, and this here is on a VPS at the moment. Now, as is a brand new bot, it hasn't got any current bets, cancelled bets, results, or a log. Okay, the log is important because that tells you what's going on. So I'll just halt the video for a minute and I'll just bring up a bot that's running. Just one second. Okay, here we are now with a bot that's been running, so it's got some results and things, so we can just have a look at, there's no current bets at the moment, so this will tell us the current bets and how much is being bet on them. Cancelled bets, these are bets that have been cancelled by the bot because they weren't able to be placed properly, or the price had moved too much. And then we have the results, which give us all the results and tells us exactly what's happening. The next is the log, which tells us why a bet may not have been placed, so it analyses every race and tells us how much the next bet's going to be. So the log is a very good place to look at when you want to find out what's going on. And then we go into the tabs. So we've got tab 1, tab 2, and tab 3. And then if we go past there, you'll see there's nothing in there because we've only got, these are the only 3 tabs that we've got. It tells us the profit for this tab. Back 1 has made 1.8, back tab 2 has made 2.31, so that's Australia for tab 3 and that's the UK for tab 1. And it tells us the loss is being carried over. At the moment, tab 1 is carrying £1.28 loss, and in the UK it's carrying a 6p loss. Okay, so that's how that's what these figures mean. So at any time you can just see exactly what is happening. We can see here the profit on tab 1 here is 5.2, so on 10p target that's 52 points profit, and that's 13 points profit there in the UK. So that's the background of the tab. So that's how the software works. It just runs in the background. It doesn't take up very much, as you can see there, not very much data at all. And it's a great fun thing to use, and also the profits are there, as you can see in the results. So thanks for having a look at the Backhorse bot, and just keep in mind that it does have the manual on that green button, so if you do buy the bot then you can always check on the green button and find out the answer to the questions that you may have. Okay, but it does give you plenty of options to experiment with things, and you can see there you can bet very small amounts while you're trying out different strategies that you've always had in mind but never had the time to sit down and actually go through and use. Okay, on behalf of Michael and myself, Steve, thanks for watching the Under the Bonnet, and we hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.